privilege of knowing Martin Barrett for only a year now. But one thing that you'll gain from Martin is that he is a good friend. He invited my girlfriend and I over to dinner just one night randomly, not even really knowing us, and he and his wife Beth asked us questions that, we left that night going, man, our parents don't even ask us those questions. And we have great parents. So I'm thrilled that you guys have the opportunity to hear from Martin and what he's doing with Sozo to impact the world. So thank you.
Hear, hear.
This is way stuck where it is, but anyway. Well, thank you for the chance to be here and share. And I will tell you that I come with a lot of fear and trepidation to this. These are thoughts that I've been percolating on now for years, literally, and I've never had a reason to actually coalesce them into a concise way of thinking, and I still don't think it's concise. I've gone over this multiple times and it won't even show because there's so many different thoughts. But to begin with, married for 34 years and 3 kids, 28. Married, lives in DC, 25. My daughter is a grad student at Wheaton in clinical psychology, and our youngest is a senior at Washington State in the Navy ROTC program, and ever since he was 8 years old, and we were in San Diego and he saw jets flying off aircraft carriers, there's been one obsession in his life. So that's what he's planning on doing. Our background is very varied. We have spent 15 years in Young Life and the rest of the time in business, and unlike other times it hasn't been it's been the straight line and then you go, no, it's been in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. So we are really confused. And the thing that we noticed is when we were involved with the nonprofit world, we always missed the head of the for-profit world. And when we were in the for-profit world, we always missed the heart of the nonprofit world. So both of them have some terrific qualities, and we do get to hang out with young people all the time. And if you, in your life, you don't have Barclays and Kenneth, you are totally missing out. This is just a terrific generation. On one hand, they are, and we'll get to this in a bit, the most entitled generation in the history of the world. And on the other hand, they are asking questions about what it looks like to live the kingdom that our generation still hasn't even gotten to the starting line. So there are some terrific things about this culture in this generation. We'll get to a few of those in just a little bit. But our life in business and in various aspects of ministry brought us to a really interesting place. And I'm just going to share just a little bit about Sozo and then move on. So we, my wife and I, in our involvement with Young Life, got very involved in urban issues within Seattle. And so we became very aware of issues of hunger in our city, homelessness, fatherlessness, the poor education system. You just kind of go down the list that puts a lot of kids in jail from the moment they're born, quite frankly. And those kinds of things really are heartbreaking for us. So we, at one time, we owned a winery down in Oregon, and at the end of 2007, we got out of that winery, and we're wondering what we're supposed to be doing. And it's sort of like, okay, Lord, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? There was a long period of silence, which really led to a huge crisis in my life, because I'm like, what am I going to do? And so good friends came back from working on the Mercy Ship, which is a floating hospital. They go into various ports. They were stationed off the west coast of Africa, and they go in and they cut up kids and put them back together again so they can use their hands and walk and talk and remove these tumors that grow because of the parasites that are in the water. So Monty was really struggling coming back. He was in severe culture shock. He would get emails from his friends over there, oftentimes as many as a dozen a day, saying our family hasn't eaten in 3 days, you gotta help. Meanwhile, his neighbors are dragging designer dog food up and down the stairs, complaining that Fifi didn't really like this batch because the rice-lamb mixture just wasn't quite what it was before. And he's going, this is just not working for me. This is not happening. And so he came to me for counseling. I think we were on our 3rd session. And I don't counsel. My daughter's becoming a counselor. I don't counsel. My sum total skills of counseling is open a bottle of wine, pour a glass, and shut up. And so we were so
like a good vicar.
Exactly. So Monty's talking away, and then and pretty soon he starts talking about these orphans that they had met because the Civil War in Liberia, there's about 1/3 of the population are orphans, and I started talking about what $1 would buy, and then I drifted into Never Never Land. The good thing about not counseling and only listening is they don't know when you're not listening anymore. So you can just kind of go off and start thinking about other things. And I thought, you know, there is, and I know someone's going to bring up the article that came out from Chase a few days ago, but whatever. We'll talk about that later if you want to. There's this huge glut in the wine industry, and it's been growing this way for a long time. And so I thought, you know, we could make world-class wines that are great values at every price point, but we will never own a brick or a stick. And because of that, our cost structure will be such that we can give a lot of money away. So I said to him, you know, Monty, I think that glass of wine could feed a kid for a day. And Sozo was born. So we always lead with the product. And when you go over there, you'll see all the restaurants that we're in. None of those restaurants knew about the cause side until they bought the wine. And so we've always believed you should always lead with the wine. In fact, this wine here was out of 3,000 wines in Los Angeles, which is the 2nd largest wine competition in the United States, one of the best in class. So we're serious about great wine, but that's not why we exist. We exist for the purpose of facilitating community and funding around our friends that are meeting basic human needs, and wine's our tool. We're committed to a good tool because you can't get the job done if you don't have a good tool, but that's not why we exist. You know, if we go away, let's face it, the world is not stuck drinking swill. There's a lot of good wine out there, and we're just part of all the good wine. But how did we get to the place that we got to is sort of where I want to go. At the end of last time, Jeff finished up with the very thought of transformation. Now, if everybody was here, you know, he said, at Camino Island Coffee, we are not about transaction. We are about transforming our customer. So, and there's, you know, obviously he was up here for 40 minutes, and there's like a boatload of stuff behind that. So I think that's exactly where I'd like to pick up, is the whole idea of transformation. And I would submit that there's a few places that we need to look at transformation in our culture. And I'm going to end with this whole thing of social business, and I hope I don't offend too many people along the way. So, quick story. When my wife and I were first going on Young Life staff, I started, I had been, I was raised in a fundamentalist family. I love that. I was going to say my grandfather is turning in his grave that we have a winery, but I don't think so. I think he's just frustrated that he didn't realize how great wine was before. So anyway, he's probably, go Martin, go! You know? So anyway, so I got very involved in the Catholic Church, which I absolutely love. And the reason I loved it is because as I hung around with these monks at a place called Mount Angel Abbey, I began to see the mystery of God. Now I love what I learned in the fundamentals. It's not an either or binary thing here, but I loved what I was experiencing. And so I ended up by spending quite a bit of time with an older gentleman who's 80 years old, a guy named Father Bernard, and extremely wise. You know, when you think of some of these guys, I will tell you, anybody here would choose him to run your business. This guy is so competent and capable, it's phenomenal. Anyway, so my wife and I were looking at going on Young Life staff. And so we were sitting and having a conversation. And he said to me, so why are you going to go on Young Life staff? And I said, well, because God's heart breaks for kids. And he goes, that is true. Why are you going on Young Life staff? I said, well, kids need to know that Jesus loves them. He goes, that is also true. Why are you going on Young Life staff? I said, well, because my heart breaks for kids. And he goes, I know that. Why are you going on Young Life staff? Because I think I can help. He goes, I think you can too. why are you going on Young Life staff? I'm like, all right, I give. Why am I going on Young Life staff? I don't know.
Tell me, Father.
Help me, Father. Obviously, I've sinned here, but anyway. So he said, there's only one reason for you to go on Young Life staff. Because you believe that this is the place that God has called you to work out your salvation with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
And if you believe anything, have any other motivation, you will be a failure. You will never disciple enough kids. You will never reach enough kids. You'll never train enough leaders. None of that will happen. The only reason you do what you do, and then he said, and the only reason anybody should do anything they do, is because this is the place that God has called them to work out their salvation with fear and trembling.
It's powerful.
I've carried that through the rest of my life. Regardless of whether it's Young Life, I would submit that the reason that we are in business, that God has put us in the business sector, is because this is the place we are called to work out our salvation with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
Not, there really isn't another motivation. Because ultimately, the purpose of God's redemptive act happens in us. And he puts us in various places to do that. If we really start thinking about what that would mean to the rest of our culture, if that's how people looked at everything you do, being a teacher, an attorney, a doctor, you just go down the list, it'd be absolutely transformational. It does a number of things that changes the way that I look at Monday morning. One, the measurements no longer are primarily external, they're internal. The measurement is how much is the Spirit telling me that I am surrendering to his purposes, and how much is he doing in my life day by day by day by day. So God is a God of excellence, we know that, and I'm not talking about a sloppy understanding of business. I in no way subscribe to that, because God is excellent. Everything God has done has been excellent. You look at creation in the first couple chapters of Genesis. He gets done every day and he goes, this is good. This is good. And then after 6 days of creating an excellent universe, then he says, he takes a break and he goes, it's so good that he takes a day off just to sit back and go, this is like really good. This is really good. He's enjoying. God is the God of excellence and he's the God of pleasure. And the two of them are connected.
Yeah.
God wants excellence in our lives. And there's pleasure that comes out of that. Deep, deep pleasure that comes out of that. For them, for him, and for us. As we go, Lord, you continue to do what you want to do. So the first thing is he wants to create excellence in us and renew us and redeem us back to the excellence we had before the fall. And business just happens to be the place that he's doing it in us. And it's filled with, I don't know about you guys, I am filled with fear and trembling constantly. We have business decisions we have to make. I'm like, I don't understand this next one. There are doors that close in front of me that I go, Lord, I don't get that. And then doors open, and I don't get that. I don't understand it all. Anybody who has ever run a business and knows what it's like to make payroll knows fear and trembling. Sometimes it's, we had a business one time that was in such, that my brother and I took over. It was so bad. Everything was leveraged, and the CFO came to us after we made payroll. He goes, we have 17 cents left in our line of credit. If this doesn't turn around in the next couple of weeks, it's over, guys. And I'm telling you what, I was serious fear and trembling at that point in time. It was an old family business that my brother and I had taken over. So it changes the way that we begin to measure things. So why are we in business? I believe it's because this is the place God's called us to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. That leads to the next question, and that is, what is the purpose of business? So the purpose for us being in it is because God has called us in this space. What is the purpose of business? When I was at SPU in business school, it had the same understanding of the purpose of business that every place I've ever been to says, and that is the purpose of business is to maximize shareholder value. I remember the first time I heard that, I thought, that is a terrible purpose for business. That is a terrible purpose for business. If that is the purpose for business, then we are in deep, deep trouble. So and we've seen that. That has been, no matter where you go, that's what I hear people say in all the business schools, this is the purpose for business. It's what's been ingested in our culture as the purpose for business. And I would submit to you that that has to change.
Amen.
So if you look at the Great Commission, or the Great Commandment, it says, you know, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That word all to me is a little freaky, because all is like all. You know, I mean, the problem with all is it doesn't leave anything that you can kind of leave out over on the side, because then that isn't all. So all is all. I mean, when God uses those kinds of words, it's a little irritating, because there's really no place to move. So we love him with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our mind, all of our strength, all of the time, all our places, in everywhere, whether that's family or whatever. And then the expression of that is, we love our neighbor as ourselves. I would submit to you that the purpose of business is to love your neighbor as yourself. God has called us to provide goods and services for the express purpose of loving our neighbor as ourselves. Now, we have an economic measurement to that.
Yeah.
And it's called profit. There's nothing wrong with that. Every area that we're called to work in has a measurement to it. As a teacher, the measurement should be our students learning. Okay? If it's law, it should be, are we seeing an expansion of justice? There's all kinds of different measurements. For our measurement, it's very clear. Our measurement is profit. But the question of what profit is profit is measuring how efficient and effective we are at delivering the love that we're called for our neighbors. How are we doing at that? There is nothing wrong with profit. Profit is good. Profit is a great thing. In fact, hopefully this won't be too scandalous, but I view profit to business like sex with marriage. It is not the point, but without it, neither will last very long. It's absolutely important. You cannot have an ongoing operation without it. It's a good thing. But it's not the point.
Can you begin next month on that? Elaborate.
So I am very much a pro-profit person in this. I think it's very good. But yes, also that too. But it's not the point. The point is we're called to love our neighbor as ourselves. Now start thinking about what that means in terms of the business climate. If that becomes the objective, it changes so much of what we do. It changes the products we offer. It changes the way we message those things. Is it really loving someone to convince them that if they don't have this particular product, they're unlovable? Really? Does it really help someone to say, you're not fulfilled unless you buy this product, and oh, by the way, you need to go into debt to do that? Really? That's loving our neighbor as ourselves. It fuels, our current understanding of business fuels the consumerism and the idolatry of our culture, which has led us to the place that we're in today. So, I know these are messy questions then on how you get out of these things, but understanding what the purpose of business is very important. So now the question really becomes this issue of social entrepreneurship or social enterprise. And so social enterprise is a really interesting phenomenon. It's fueled, as most of you know, by the younger generation. You know, this concept is fueled by the younger generation. And we kind of have to ask the question, why? Now, every younger generation since World War II has all tried to define themselves or redefine themselves. Now, all of us that are old, we call that rebellion. But when you're a part of that generation, you're thinking, we're trying to understand who we are. We're trying to create this identity about who we are. And so they're looking at it, and it's very informative to begin to understand why they look at the world the way that they look at the world. Now, there's some younger folks here, so rebuke me in private if I have this all wrong. But social enterprises is kind of a bizarre concept. I'm with Jeff one of the first things Jeff said last month is he goes, it's a little crazy to talk about social enterprise because I'm not exactly sure what it is. And furthermore, I sort of think everybody should be it anyway. So it's kind of a crazy thing, but it is that. You know, it's to a certain extent everybody should be. But why are we seeing what we're seeing in this phenomenon called social enterprise? So this part hopefully will not completely offend us in the older generation, and believe me, I'm a part of this, okay? So I hear a lot of criticism of the younger generation, and there's reason to be critical of the younger generation and even of this whole aspect. But someone has to ask, who's their daddy? Where'd they get this from? And what happened? Where did it start? You know, the essence of leadership is the ability to and the willingness to take responsibility, something we're not seeing in leadership, particularly at a national level. So here's what the younger generation is responding to. And we can all look at this, by the way, because we can look at our reactions in our generations to the previous abuses or the previous issues and realize there was some good in it and then there was some bad in it. We both responded and we reacted. You know, response is good, reaction usually is not very good. So here's what they're responding to. A divorce rate of over 50% due to an unwillingness to keep vows and work things through because we have a very lazy relational generation. That'd be us. We've devastated the family structure. We've led to, our culture has created incredible promiscuity. Part of the thing is we've left boys confused because they haven't seen marriages, and it's fueled the whole homosexual movement. We're leaving them with $140 trillion of debt. I think that's on the low side, actually. A gift from the wealthiest generation in the history of the world to their kids and to their grandkids and to their great-grandkids. Because after all of our wealth, we're still not satisfied. We want more. We have an increasingly corrupt government, the inevitable result of the largest pool of wealth ever assembled, a result of paying, or rather having our kids and our grandkids pay, for someone else to deliver compassion, rather than actually getting our hands dirty and caring for the poor, for the widow, for the orphan, and for the elderly. A corrupt business sector who for profit it's the only purpose for existence, and what is ethical is just not being caught. Workaholics buying everything including their kids while mainlining on Prozac to deal with their depression due to the absolute lack of meaning and fulfillment in what we do. And then being bought rather than being loved, which has turned them into the newest and most entitled generation in the history of the world. They learned it from the masters. I would submit the last 3 generations that I'm a part of, we are the masters at entitlement. And we have passed it right now. What they're reacting to, and this is the fascinating thing about social enterprise, some of it is extremely good, and we're going to watch an example of what I believe is the best social enterprise company that I know of, run by a bunch of young people, and they are phenomenal. But the fascinating thing about social enterprise, when you begin to analyze it, you begin to realize it's the best of both worlds, or the best and the worst. The best is this younger generation is questioning why we do business. So I meet with a bunch of young guys who all own their business. And we meet every other Tuesday night for dinner. We're together for several hours. And they're asking the question, literally, how do I work out my salvation with fear and trembling as a business owner? Some of these guys literally own a machine shop, and they have 2 employees. One guy owns the largest app company in I think on the West Coast. They've done, I think, over 10,000 apps now. And he has 80 employees. So, and another guy has 150 and runs a machine mirror company. And we're all in this place talking, and they're asking these questions. And what they're looking at is they're looking at the previous generations and saying, the answers you've given us are bankrupt. They don't work. And they're asking these absolutely great questions. So this is the good side. But here's what's funny about the whole thing with social entrepreneurism. And Tom should say, us at Sozo, we're part of this, is just like our generation, they're entitled to call out the problem and have someone else solve it. I'm gonna get a pair of shoes, I'm entitled to buy a pair of shoes that provides a pair of shoes. I'm entitled to drink a glass of wine that feeds a kid. There's a problem out there. I'm entitled to someone fixing that problem for me. Where did they learn that from? They learned it from us. What we're seeing in social enterprise is a natural progression of what we all have created. So they want to be involved. They want to help the issues. They look at our culture and they say, what I see hasn't been good. And it's a fascinating response, the melding of the two. Some of it is really good and some of it isn't very good. I want to show you a really good one. So this is a group called Crochet Kids. For anybody of you know how it is, the story behind it is just too fun not to tell. I'll do it really quickly. Started with a guy named Cole and 3 friends over in Spokane when they were in high school. Cole's grandmother taught Cole how to crochet. So he hadn't done it for a while, but they wanted to have the world's greatest senior prom, and they were stone broke, you know, like a lot of high school kids are. So they thought, hey, Cole said, hey, I'm gonna get some yarn, we'll sit in the commons area, and we'll crochet hats, and we'll sell them to our friends, and we'll get a bunch of money, and we can have money for prom. So they ended up by doing that. They start the very first of the year, they do this through the whole year, and they make bank on this thing. I mean, they have like the greatest prom date ever type thing. So anyway, that was kind of the end story of the whole thing. They go to college. After college, they felt like God said, go to Africa. They didn't know anybody or whatever, but they went to Africa. They're in the north part of Uganda. They're sitting around, there's a whole bunch of kids, a bunch of ladies sitting around. They have nothing to do. Somehow, someone had a couple spools of yarn, which isn't a lot of yarn in northern Africa, or northern Uganda. But anyway, someone had one. So they went out, got a stick, carved out a crochet hook, and started crocheting, taught these ladies how to crochet hats. I think they made a half a dozen of them or something like that. They packed them in their luggage, brought them back, sold the hats, and sent the money back to these women. Fast forward. Go ahead.
It started with an idea, a simple act in response to a call for help. It started by listening, because everyone has a voice. Because we all deserve dignity. Because people are willing and capable. Empowerment requires much more than a single transaction or temporary assistance. An opportunity to flourish does not start with a handout. It starts with a job. Worth. Education breeds innovation. Mentorship nourishes relationship. It's about investing in the whole person, because people are worth it. Because everyone has a dream for their future. What would the world look like if we viewed the success of others as our own? What if you could equip someone to not just survive, but thrive? What if you could play a role in this process? What if you could know who made your product? And what if their life would never be the same because of it? This is empowerment.
company is run by some young guys. Every one of us, I wish Cole would just come and run our company. I mean, he's one of the most phenomenal leaders I've ever been with. He's early 30s, and absolutely phenomenal. I love the question they ask. What if your customer's success was your success? That is how they have focused on it. And when you look, but they're not just, they're thinking about it horizontal, or vertically and horizontally through the whole organization. This is what's so brilliant about what they've done. The products are great products. They're sold at Nordstrom's. They have a contract with Vans. They put their crochet kid thing, you know, on top of Vans. They put out a high quality product. The women that you saw there in class, here's the thing, you only get to work there. They have 100 women at the Uganda, and now they've opened up one in Peru. They have 100 women. You only get to work there 3 years, and you have to leave. Okay, now this is a little crazy. The average woman leaves with $10,000 in the bank.
Wow.
That's like a serious fortune over there. I mean, that's like... The classroom that you saw is they start training the women to become entrepreneurs. So the idea is you take your $10,000 and you start investing it over here into the community. They've transformed the whole economy of this area by just spawning hundreds of young entrepreneurs. Women that are going out and everything from they started a chicken farm to they got goats to they started teaching a school. They opened up a school. They're charging tuition. I mean, it's crazy kind of what they have done. It is absolutely phenomenal. But they began with this idea that your success is my success. I think that's what God calls us to in business. I think that's what loving your neighbor as yourself. And I think when you do that, you're just so countercultural, you will work out your salvation with fear and trembling. It is really, really hard. So anyway, there you go. I don't know, kind of too long, but anyway, questions, rebukes.
Can you elaborate on Sozo a little bit?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Sozo is actually a Greek word. It means to save one from perishing. There's two things about the company. As I said before, we always lead with the product. We don't think anybody should buy the first bottle because of the product or because of the cause. We think you should buy it because you think it's a great wine and it's a great value. After that, you should buy it ad nauseum because of the cause. But
And that's a great one.
exactly. We always want to have a measurable outcome to it, so it literally began with this idea that glass of wine will feed a kid for a day. And so every bottle has a number on it. This one is what we call a Sozo 10, and that means that proceeds from it provide 10 meals, either at an orphanage or Jubilee Reach, places like this. So we partner with them. We didn't really want to be in restaurants. That wasn't our objective. But what happened was, and now that I'm in this place, I understand it more and more. The moment we came out with a product that was attached to doing good, the response in the marketplace was, so how bad is this wine? You have to guilt me into buying it with hungry kids. You know, it was like, all right, this isn't going to work. So we thought, well, there's a number of ways you can take care of this. And I was offended, by the way, because I don't drink bad wine. I don't want anything to do with bad wine. Monty, my partner, was offended because he kind of goes, so what's up with that? I mean, like you can't do something quality for the poor? You know, that's our mentality, really? So, so we packed up the kit, and I went up to Canlis and sat down with Nelson, and we tasted through the wines, and he said, I'll take those 3. And then I said, good, now I'll tell you what Sozo means and what it does. And then we went to Rovers and Crush and Serafina, and literally it's hard to find the best restaurants in Seattle that we're not in. And so that's what we did. It was a detour, basically. We had to, because we had to get around this issue of quality, and the best way to do it is to basically get endorsements. I mean, that's really what they are. They're just endorsements. So about in May, which is really kind of fun, I was pulling out our 80th restaurant, and I just felt like It was done. So I called Monty, my business, I said, we're done with restaurants. 81 isn't gonna prove quality any more than 80. You know, we're done with that whole thing. Let's get back to what we wanted to do. Right after that, like within days, we got a call from Mercedes-Benz. And they said, hey, we've had your wines at these restaurants. We'd like to partner with you. So we sat down with Mercedes-Benz and they said, we want to be able to put together a gift box that we can give to our clients after they buy a car. And we're plugged into the Pike Place Food Bank due to relationships. And so we crafted this for them. So it's wine, coffee from Phil Meach over at Cafe Luso, and chocolate, which I'm told is really great chocolate. I'm not a chocolate person, but my wife lives chocolate. So, and then this goes on top of it. Oh, it's the Jaguar one. Anyway, okay. But anyway, it was Mercedes to start out with. And so they give this, and then on the back, it has a story from, actually this one is from the food bank, telling their story, thanking, but it's a whole process of thanking the customer and then telling them why they're involved in what they do. So these get handed out, you buy a Mercedes in Seattle anyway, the Seattle Mercedes, or the Jaguar dealer over here in Bellevue, or the Lexus dealer. That's what happens. What's fun is it's changed dramatically in 3 months, to the point now that we have businesses and we're doing this with businesses, which has been really, really a fun way for them to give a quality gift and to say thank you as well as to tie. This goes back to what we wanted to do, and that is facilitate the forming of community and funding around our friends that meet basic human needs. That's why we got into this. And so anyway, so this one's kind of fun. This is Siloam is a clinic in the poorest portion of Nashville, and they are basically what you can pay. Run. It's volunteer. It's doctors that are in there, and nurses, and dentists, and counselors, and all kinds of. It's a very cool thing. All done in the name of Jesus. And so now their development people have gotten excited about this. So now their development people have taken this out, and they work with all these folks like realtors. So when you buy a house, this is what they give. Susan does. Which ties them back into the cause, because then the backside is a thank you and a tie into the cause. So into the organization. So that's what we've been doing and where we're living right now, and where our focus is. Yeah.
Jeff?
Thank you so much for sharing with us. You know, it's one of the best things about Marketplace Connection is that, you know, I'm sitting there lost in thought of how I can leave here today and start transforming my business or my responsibility in the world that we live in. You know, we had, before we went through this, we had people stand up and share why they were in business. And the theme was to help you. You know, and what an awesome opportunity to say, not are we going to help people, we're going to excel. We're not going to give them a cheap product. We're not going to try to skim things off the top. We're going to give them the highest quality because we want them to know that they're our most prized product. That's who we want to serve, is others. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing with us. Let's give them another round.